We will call this meeting to order at 5:18.
I interrupt for just one second. The basketball went for $300 to the Beal family. And
Basketball?
the basketball, the Cooper flag basketball,
Yeah.
and the bench went for $120.
Oh, wow, cool, thank you.
And Heather says, thank you very much.
Why the Cooper flag update? Are we associated with that at all?
I just.
Lynn wanted to know how
Oh,
much it
oh.
went for, so
I
Heather.
did it up there and then I'm like, that didn't have a COA on it. So all right. We have Leslie, Steve, Lynn, Allison, Kathy, Kim, Heather. We're loaded up, huh?
Yeah.
Great. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Not.
We're not.
On number 3.
Oh. You want an agenda?
I'm taking it.
Those are surveys. There's
Oh,
copies of
I don't
the
know.
survey.
Give
Take
one.
it, I can look on to Steve's. Somebody can have mine,
Thank
instead of
you.
using it on. Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
We'll move on to number 3, talk about the survey feasibility, and everything, how it went. I think we all were present for the most part.
As of the email this afternoon, there are 480 responses. There are cards and paper formats there. Thank you to Kim, who entered the paper ones for us last week. And my understanding is that it will be in the crier on the Topsham, Town of Topsham page for the month of April, as well as the climate survey. It's still on the front page of the website. I'll probably hit Facebook next week again, get through the Easter holiday. Say 425. 480. That's what he said this afternoon. I wanted to know where the price points were and that type of stuff, but
Yeah.
he didn't give those details, so hopefully I'll follow up. And he didn't respond until about a half an hour ago, so.
I
Hopefully,
wanna know if there's more yeses than nos to tell me how hard I have to work in April to find more yeses.
I know that we had 15. What can you
I
have?
think it was 14 or
14.
15, yeah, and we have paper copies,
14 or 15.
right, yeah. And we have 4 no's, and then we have one that just had a comment written on it and nothing else, so this one has not been entered because
I met that gentleman.
no way to really enter it.
He did send an update. In general, pretty large support for the idea, 71%, 21 say it depends, 20 say it depends. Among those that support or say it depends, they often mention facilities before we talk about taxes. Meeting room to serve various needs, teen center, childcare, indoor walking track, fitness center, multi-use room for function. Most would support, given the property tax increase, though some would change the mix, and a few would no longer support it. The same 4 facilities top the list, but the percentage supporting each has dropped. Let me know if you have any questions. I am also tabulating the verbatim responses, and I can get those to you as well.
So. Glad he did respond.
Yeah, that's what I want to know is what people went in, filled out exactly what they wanted, saw how much it costs, and then went backwards and took things away. And what were those things in what order? What were they willing to give up?
Big gas.
Well, it would make the biggest impact, but it also would bring more money. So there's
Right.
so many things to look at.
Yeah.
So anywhere else you can think of that we should hit? Are there any school functions? If anybody's available, we have the Easter egg hunt on Friday night and we have Easter egg hunts on Saturday morning. Does anybody wanted to have a table and do it at any of those? The flashlight hunt is at 8 o'clock on Friday. And the two hunts are at 10 and 10:50.
I wonder about leaving some of the cards at the elementary school, like on the, you know, the shelf or the counter where you sign your kids in and out.
Yeah, I was disappointed the school district replied what they did. That their policy is that they would, they advertise programs that are beneficial to their, students, but they don't, they won't send out surveys.
And they wouldn't even display it, huh?
Yeah, I had sent it to both Randa and Rick, Dita at Woodside. Both were more than happy to do it, just said they needed the superintendent's approval. I sent a friendly email to, Heidi, forgive me, who I know well. She said, I have to pass this to Amanda Hersey, who is the policy person, the vice superintendent. And she replied to me and said, that was her response. Her response was, we're happy to share programs and, direct people to programs, but we don't feel that is it would be appropriate for us to, solicit a survey.
I wonder if we could give it to staff and put it in staff rooms.
Well, those of you who work in the district, I encourage you to be as creative as you can.
I've
You have
talked
a
a
lot
lot
of
about it in the
residents.
staff
Yeah.
room.
Mhm. Lynn and I had a good time at the dump, although it was very cold, but I wouldn't mind doing it at the library someday. Because it seemed to help to have a face with the
Mhm.
survey. I mean, we chatted with almost everybody. It was funny though, that the people that walked right by us didn't say, oh yeah, I've already filled mine out, or good job, ladies, or they just walked by and let us kind of wonder, well, maybe we should chase them to their car and ask them if but anyway, it was a learning experience, and I don't think the library would be such a bad place.
The library is supposed to have shared it on their listserv. Has anybody seen that?
I think they did. I remember seeing it in one of my emails. I thought it was the school, but if you're saying the
It's not
school
the
did it, then it
school.
must have been the library.
I know Susan was out, her mom passed away, so I don't know, if that happened or not. But I can check on that.
Has anybody reached out to Highland Green? If not, I'll do that. No, I'll see if I can get it. I think they have an email or something that goes to their residents periodically, so I'll see if I can get it in there.
What about the post office?
Federal.
Oh, okay, never mind. How about Hannaford?
I think we could ask, we could put a card up on the wall, on the bulletin board. I don't think they'd say no to that.
Even if it got us 3 responses, bootleggers.
Is there a stack at Rusty's, Kevin?
Leave the stacks out.
Yeah.
I mean,
They what, Steve?
I don't love, I'd rather be a little more personal than the stack is just kind of, this might be a waste of paper.
well, and my concern is cost effectiveness, because and those are envelopes underneath. That's all we have for cards, and those were the cards that we ordered to have made because it just got too time consuming to cut, and put them together. So if I need to order another 150, it'll be another $50.
I do have the ear of somebody at Highlands, because she asked me to do a wine dinner for them. So she obviously has access to all of the clients.
They have a pretty good network up there.
And we've actually a lot of committee volunteers for Highland Green too.
Right. I can approach, the principal at the middle school, because I would argue with them that it does support the school system.
I agree entirely, but because I get so much from the school, I felt it wasn't my space to argue with.
Well, if she doesn't allow me to ask her to send an email out to all the parents, and maybe within my RSU, or Link 75 email, I can send it to the teachers. But I would probably ask permission before I did it. That's something.
And like I said, it's going into 5,000 homes next week. So that will reach people who didn't vote and haven't been into town hall and don't have
We
internet.
got 1,000 responses, that's a win.
Right, that's what we're looking for, I think. That's what we got last time.
Well, I think a lot of people too thought that it was just a Republican primary, because that's what I was hearing when I was there. So that might be having an impact as well.
I mean, another day is done, probably wouldn't hurt you.
Yeah, I could do that.
Primary hall. There was no options.
What is there an April vacation? Anything special?
For them.
I like the library option. I think that's, if there's an event happening, maybe there's an event.
I'm waiting to hear back from Cindy from the library.
They were doing music every Saturday.
This coming Saturday, they actually have their final one. It got postponed from last week and it's the flute ensemble.
Which my dad's wife is in,
Oh,
so I might be there anyway.
well. Will I make some more postcards?
I think it's worth having more postcards. I think $50 is worth it.
I've killed my printing budget. Can we print those from the community fund? Or should I just overdraw?
If you haven't, if you're not overdrawing other parts of your budget, you're better off just overdrawing.
Okay, all right.
I know it was shared with the Mid-Coast Youth Hockey families, and I'm also wondering about like with baseball and softball starting up, can we share it like with those families too?
Hillary and I are talking about a baseball clinic on Monday and Tuesday of the school vacation, so I'll be happy to give it to her and ask her to get it out to there to both baseball and softball. But the other side we have to remember is we get non-Topsham.
Right,
There is a good
yes.
portion of them that are, I mean, we might get 50 families from Topsham on baseball.
Can you share a sports award, Steve?
Yes, I did make a comment about it, going to the website, but Jeff didn't do exactly what I wanted him to do. It's all good. I think we should probably, before we go too crazy in the public eye, wait and see what happens with the.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't wanna almost become kind of a pain.
What are the two biggest days, tax days?
What do you mean?
Paying your taxes?
Yeah, there won't be people happy to, you're getting them as they're paying their real estate taxes. They won't be so happy.
Okay, get it.
They're like-
I was just thinking people in the door.
It's the day after Patriots Day this year.
At 16.
But Hanford's not a terrible idea.
I don't think they'll let people stand outside though.
Yeah, they don't do it like they used to.
No.
I know the Girl Scouts have to go to Joanne's to do cookies. They can't do it at Hanford.
Yeah. I just wondered if we could do like you had said and post it on the bulletin, and then that way as people walk by, maybe that's one card, and maybe people will take a photo with their phone and.
Do we have them here at the town hall?
Out on the shelves there.
The handwritten survey and a few of the cards were put out there a week ago. 2 weeks ago. We have gotten some that have come in, but those are the ones that I gave to Kim, so. Somebody come in?
No, just the lights.
Okay.
When does the crier come out? Next week?
Generally, the third or the fourth. He has the Topsham page. He's had it since last week, so I wanted to be sure all of the surveys were popping up. Ours was working, but the climate action one wasn't, so we had to, the planner and I had to redo her ad. But ours was fine, so.
Halfway there?
And we have to put our heads together and say, each person has to sign up 20 new surveys, and so be it. A couple hundred in here.
I just went through my email list and my text. Like, okay, do you live in Topsham? And I just sent it to people that I knew, family and whatnot. I'm like, would you fill this out? Yep, done. Because it's more of that personal approach, you know? So, and if your family and you live in Topsham, then you need to be filling this out. So, go through your contacts
I'd
every
say
day.
Harris, but I don't think Troy gets he gets most of the Brunswick golf club, he doesn't get a lot of the residents.
That's a lot of the same people
Mhm.
over and over again. But once it warms up a little bit, there's more access to a lot more people.
But we were hoping to be done by April 30th.
Sure.
I think we don't panic until it goes into the crier. I mean, it's good to talk about it, but
I think if we're able to hit the Highland, the crier, and the library one goes out,
yeah.
and then we can reassess mid-April and see if we need to do a dump day in the library day.
Is there anything at Six Rivers? Are they kind of, you know,
They're open and they, are active, but they're not a lot of Topsome people. You might hit a few here and there, like we're doing skills clinics there on Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour.
yeah,
But those are kids that are in our lacrosse program that already got the email through our
Okay.
system.
Yeah.
I can email it out through our system again.
That is certainly the target market.
Well, I did put it out once already, but I'll email it again.
Great. Are there any further actions we'd like to take before April 30th? Obviously, we're gonna have to somehow communicate to each other.
well, Kathy and I can talk about doing another day at the transfer station, because we went in the afternoons, and maybe if we get a good day, we can go in the morning and hit a different crowd.
So how about if I email Brian around, what is it, Friday the 12th? It will have been out providing, and I'll know whether I got it or not, to see what he got for responses in that 1 week period. And then we can put a plan together via email.
Yeah.
Does that work?
That email that he sent has a PDF with percentages on it attached. I don't know if we want to look at that tonight or not.
I can go up and print it if you'd like me to, while you guys move on.
I
to
almost
other-
say it's better not to focus too much on the results yet, because we want this to be objective. We don't want it to be, we need to push this,
We need to
More.
panic.
because it's gonna hurt I think the credibility of the survey, if it looks like we were engineering results. So I'd almost say, let's not focus on the results, let's just try to get as many people to fill it out as possible.
Okay, well, I know Pam had asked for more result and he sent it, so.
No, I mean, it's fine, you've got those, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't ask for more, I wouldn't even pay attention to them yet, let's just try to get as many surveys as we can.
Okay.
Exactly what you wanted to know, Steve, is it nothing else?
Yeah. Great. All right, let's talk about next steps after the survey.
Sorry,
Yeah,
did you have a question?
I do, I was just trying to formulate when the appropriate time to ask questions or talk is, that's all.
I
I
guess
can do it
what-
later, I don't need to do it right now, I'm sorry, I interrupted,
No, it's all right, but does it have anything to do with next steps?
no, that's why I was.
Okay. Then we'll bring that up in, probably number 7. Action steps. If you want.
Sure.
Okay,
You'd be here.
great.
Yeah, should.
Well, that's kind of that sort of covers number 4 as well. Our next steps. So those are kind of the same, I would
Yeah.
think. All right, touring the community centers. We do need to get on that.
I did reach out to Wiscasset as you guys had asked, and they, Dwayne is more than happy to have us over. He did, you know, I said, well, would they meet in the evening, so it probably would be either a late afternoon or an evening, and he said, just give me the date that works, and as long as it works for me, we'll see you then. I think. Where were the two others you wanted? Was it Wyndham we talked about? No,
Wow, Waterville,
Waterville, the Alpine.
because
Okay.
of Kelly's tie
Yeah,
to them.
Kelly's tie to them, Waterville.
But Wyndham's was built by Harriman, correct?
Well, Herman did all the work in the study and designed a building, and then they inherited a school. And an old middle school, and so they turned around and took what feedback they had with everything and put it into that.
Correct.
And I don't know if Harriman was involved with the changeover with the new facility. I have to talk to Linda, I'm not sure, the woman at the, Wyndham Parks and Rec director.
Other spaces where I think we talked about Freeport.
345,
Yeah,
I don't have any connections within the Y system.
I can run down there.
We got quite a few pictures of the people location from one of the people that came to the focus groups. She sent pictures.
I don't remember, was that Robin?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just think that it's close by, and it's heavily attended.
Well, would you guys prefer a Saturday or a weeknight?
Doesn't matter.
Well, Waterville's gonna be a trip, so I'm trying to think of other ones that I'm aware of along the way. Yeah,
Are we thinking in the month of April?
Well, it's something that is in combination with the results of the survey and next steps, so it's not something that has to be done in the next 30 days, but.
did you wanna go to St. John's? I know I sent you the floor plan to St. John's. Jerry's wife Doris is on the committee, she has keys, as he says to me, she has keys. So
That's
if
less sports focused and more community focused. And I feel like Freeport is more sports focused and less community. So
Yeah,
there'll
it
be
was-
different things we can pull from it.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with the problem with St. John's and the price tag on St. John's, don't get scared on that because most of it was the facade to match the church and the building and the school. It brought in everything to complement each other. And they had a footprint that they had to fit within just because of Brunswick planning and dimension and all that, so that they really would have liked to have had more, but they were restrained within it.
I think if you haven't seen St. John's, you should, because it is a good multi-function room with
It
a
has a
kitchen.
stage, it has all of the
Yeah.
above, so, and St. John's we could do on a meeting night. We could
Yeah.
meet there and start, so.
Great. Okay, that's our visiting community center talk, we'll stand by on that, correct? All right, minutes. I read them before I got here.
You just have one thing on page 2. Or actually, I guess it's technically page 3. Oh, now I lied. Wherever my name was, it's spelled wrong. Oh, yeah, item 9.
Oh,
Sorry, Allison. That's all right. It's SIROIS.
Saru is much more French.
I know, no one can spell it.
I will fix it.
That's all. Thank you.
It's always.
Put those panels in there, maybe it would get more.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
if
can
you
we
couldn't
do
spell that
get
either.
more people?
So, sorry, for today's meeting, under number 4, discussion next steps after survey complete, we're just kind of leaving that focus currently on getting survey responses. Less on the responses themselves until after we have more results. So we're not focusing on next steps after the surveys are complete, because right now we're still focusing on just getting survey responses. Correct. Is that a good way to say it?
Although, do we have a date to present back to the select board? No.
No,
Well, I think you probably wanna wait till the report's done. So probably the next step is, after the survey is gonna be to coordinate with Harriman Associates, and find out who's doing what part of the report, or hopefully they're writing virtually all of it, but.
So we may have May for that report to happen. Ish, maybe,
Right.
like, so it'd be like sort of end of May, beginning of June, for, just to think through that timeline.
And then once that report's done, then it would be time to go to the select board
Yeah.
and present the report.
Right.
Yeah, I would think we're probably not even, we're still trying to figure out how to get more numbers.
Yeah, I'm just projecting how far out we are for that, yeah. I don't have any changes on the
To
minutes.
accept the minutes. Good, great.
Yeah.
Action steps.
What I have so far is Pam is gonna repost to Facebook after the Easter holiday. Pam is going to resend out the email list. And Pam is following up with the library to see if that link has gone out. Steve to follow up with the school district to see if survey can be sent to staff. And I have Steve will follow up with the contact at Highland to see if it can be emailed out to their list. And then I have that we will follow up again via email if additional steps are needed after we find out the numbers from Crier, Highland, and library list.
And it's Highland Green.
Highland Green.
Well, all of that is Highland Green. Okay, yeah. We could get some to Highlands, the Highlands.
Yeah, because the cottages are out in the community.
I can do that. I can find out who, Lars, who's the coordinator there, I think?
I've never met him.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it was Susan Sorg, I knew Susan well.
Okay.
She was involved with our, 250th, but I don't know this Lars, no.
Okay, I can see if I can get that info there. And then ordering postcards, that was another.
I have that on my
Another
list.
Another Pam thing?
So is there anything that you can take off of that?
Not
list?
really.
You,
Lynn's got something to do.
Kim, do you wanna do the Hannaford postcard?
I can.
Sure. Yeah. Or you were thinking that was a good.
So as soon as the new batch gets in, I'll let you guys know so you can swing by and pick them up.
What does that mean? The hand-
Put one on the.
Oh, just put it up?
Yeah, community board, or bulletin board.
And why don't you just there are some there, so just take a couple and you can do that gladly. And then I'll get more for when we're gonna be more active out there.
Okay.
Great. Questions?
Yeah, thank you. I was adding up, going through the survey. If we wanted everything on that list, the total, it looks like would be $783. Tax increase for an average home of 350,000, or like in my household, like $1,500. A year for that. That number seems kind of scary to me in general. Just considering how much taxes have considerably gone up over the past few years, not because of the town's fault. But in that, and also reading this, have you guys asked any of the other centers about their revenues, what they bring in? Because one of the things that the survey doesn't mention or talk about is how those could potentially offset some of these costs, because I want a community center just as much as anybody else, but at $1,500 a year for the next foreseeable future, that seems kind of scary. And I know that's not gonna be the case, just because there are, I think, other ways that we can bring in revenue. And this is kind of a big cyclical thing, because I know we don't know the scope, we don't know the size. We're working on finding that out now through surveys. So we don't really know what to put in, what that's gonna cost and how that's gonna potentially, offset costs for us, from the taxpayers. But one of the questions I was thinking about is, have we learned also about people that are willing to pay fees to go into a community center to help offset that? To maybe, I know we can't do anything with the surveys because the surveys are out. I want to try to make it seem less scary to people, because I mean, I talk to everybody about this and I want this really, really badly. I think our community in general needs it. And I support this 100%. And I just really want to make sure when I'm reading this, that it doesn't seem biased or easy for me to check off the most expensive thing because it's all revenue based or how much is coming out of my pocket. Because I would really like certain things, even if they are more expensive or, I want all of these things, you know, I think our community deserves all of these things. But at the same time, I don't know how many people are gonna support it with that increase or that level of increase. And in order to garner support, maybe it's worth considering what revenues could be brought in to help that number become less scary, I guess is this whole tangent. Why?
I think that most of the directors, if you spoke to, Ryan, just from my experience, has been that registrations and program fees and rentals take care of operational. In other words, so that we're not putting a new position back on the town where the programs would. And depending upon if we make a partnership with a Y or a Boys and Girls Club, if we don't go Town of Topsham, if that comes to be, that those are where we would look for that, as well as we've talked a lot about a fundraising committee that would set a goal on, just like we did with the turf field. When we got the town to pay for, or the district to say yes to the turf field, there was another 250,000 we had to raise to knock that off. And I think those are the kind of things we're gonna have to put on the table after we find out.
We did kind of discuss with the consultant some of that, and they said they wanted to keep the survey simple. And not, because A, it's hard to estimate what the fees would bring in, and B, because of the fact that, as Pam said, they find in their experience, usually the fees are basically offsetting some of the operational revenue. But they wanted to make that, the survey, more of a test to see what people's real priorities were. And then the money, attaching money to it was a way to get there.
Okay.
So I don't think anyone expects necessarily, in fact, I can say no one expects that we're gonna have everything on there and funded by the taxpayer. But that survey will help give an idea of, to some extent, what people are willing to spend, also what's most important to them, and then it will give an idea of what so the parameters can be set for the fundraising goal. And okay, to move ahead with this, we're gonna need to raise X amount of money or something like that.
I just don't want people to get in their minds that this is how much it's going to cost.
Right.
When people read it,
Yeah.
because I think that's what they're gonna say, oh, pool costs $219, gone. And then it's just gossip around town that it's $219 when I don't think, I get it. I think it's a good idea to see where people's real intentions are. I also know that Topsham is just a very unique beast. And all of the places that we look at, Bath Y, it's not very big. The Wiscasset Rec Center is tiny, and to do something right and allow other towns to use it, much like we're allowed to use every other town because we don't have one. The revenues that it could bring in from the traffic alone that comes through our town is much greater than other places, and we're more central. And I spend every weekend at these places. Even in state, out of state, it doesn't matter, they're just mobs and mobs and mobs of people all day long, constantly. And I see the money go through the door, I see how many people are paying admission or paying a membership fee to a place. And I think that there is potential behind more than just operational costs of the building, to help offset a lot of the taxes and maybe that tax burden. I'm not a business expert in that area, because I've never owned that specific type of business, but it's just, my thought process, I wanted to express out that it's gonna be an expensive venture, but I think we can make it revenue positive.
We can make performance after we get it, get the basic, and I think the sheet that came from Brian today is an Excel sheet that has percentages of when people turned back or when they didn't
Yep.
go forward. And that stuff is the helpful stuff for what you're asking for, I think.
And maybe we should have put in bolder letters. Additionally, the committee would work to raise private funds to offset the cost of bonds. And maybe we should have put in bold letters, the one word, each type of facility might increase the annual property taxes. To
Yeah.
give them some idea that this isn't set in stone.
Yeah,
We
I
still have a lot of work to do to.
think that's it. I think there's just a lot of work to be done and just, I'm personally in favor of having this thing big. I love the idea of gathering, you know, especially after what we, as a society have gone through and just being alone. I think there's a lot of people that are alone in the sense of gathering and bringing people together. The more the merrier. And I think that is a message that our town always has given. And to see a grand scope of something that could be a center of our town, you know, because that's what a community center is. You know, I envision walking into a place that's just like a mall almost, just full of people, you know, some people over eating in a, you know, quiet area or doing a course in a multifunction room or a family playing basketball or all of these things just happening all the time. That's what, in my mind, that's what I envision because, you know, I'm lonely, you know, I work by myself, in a building with no windows all day long and there's nothing. And I would love nothing more than to go to a place to gather and see smiling faces and have conversations with perfect strangers and listening to elderly tell their story and just see what their stories are like because they lived a completely different life. And I don't want to limit ourselves just from my own mind. I don't want to limit ourselves to a smaller scope because of cost, when I think a grander scope could actually be more cost.
Sure, and we actually feel identically with you, and we spent about a half an hour of this with Brian, when he talked us into the fact that trust him with the data, people will fill out what they want, then they'll see the price, and he'll be gathering that data, so it's not that it's kind of tricky in a way, but he gets the data that he needs after that first initial question as to how much, what do you want in a community center? And we are well aware, even Wiscasset, as small as it is, I mean, just the pool alone is bringing in $175,000 a year. And that's only on one swim team.
Right.
So we are aware of some of the recovery costs of a lot of these ventures out there, but that's another reason why we're going to visit a lot of these buildings themselves and speak with the people that are in charge and maybe get some information out of them as far as what fee structures they have as well, because we'd love to get the high school out of Bowdoin College and into a pool at the Topsham Community Center, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, these are all things that we've certainly talked about and it's on our mind, and thank you, we appreciate that as well.
And please keep in mind, I'm just one person that just, from a public perspective, I'm not representing, it's just my own personal on this. I really do think that you guys are doing very important work. It's, you know, I wish I could come to more of these. I've missed a few from other things going on that conflict, but you're doing very, very important work for our town. I believe that wholeheartedly, and I think that it's important to, just from me, I think it's important that we all just understand the scope that everybody's gonna want something different in this town. That's hard to do because some people are gonna want something that others aren't. Some people are willing to pay for things that other people aren't willing to pay for. And we just always have to keep in mind that it's not about us, even though, you know, I'm expressing that right now, but it is about a community greater whole, and that's really what I think that you guys are really focused on, and I'm happy that you guys are doing this, because I think we will all benefit, no matter what it turns out to be, we'll all benefit, so.
I think a big part will be the written document. You know, what we get from the survey and what we put into it from visiting places to help with
Right.
formulating that, and then that's the message the community will hear.
I would never swim in a public pool, but I know it's
And
gonna bring
outdoor
in,
public.
I know it's gonna bring in a lot of money, so. That was always my vision, is to try to create something that you could actually give money back to the taxpayers at some point.
I've done business work with scopes of athletic facilities, and I know those business models pay back in 10 years and then become cash positive after 10. That's just an athletic facility. This is a totally different beast, understanding, but I do believe they're kind of similar in nature just because of the amount of people that gather. Parents follow their kids. And parents want to do things with other adults too. And there's nothing to really do sometimes. So this is another opportunity that could bring into that kind of that mind in our town, because we are very fiscally conservative in this town, but at the same time, I think it's also a way to keep us fiscally conservative by maybe thinking about the capitalistic approach to how we can raise the revenue to pay for itself and still have something great and then give back to the taxpayers after the building's paid off. Do that revenue. I think it's possible. I haven't done it all, but I think it's worthy of asking the question to whoever the guy that you guys are working with.
That will be our fundraising chair. Appreciate that. Any other questions or action steps that we'd like to address?
I do have a question based on the question that was asked to me when we were handing out for talking to people at voting. So they were asking, or at least one person asked if we knew where this was going to be built, and I realized I didn't have an answer for that. So I was wondering if okay, that's what I was just wondering. If it was simple.
I'll give a possibility that we're exploring,
Okay.
but isn't set in stone. Is we have a 20-acre parcel that sits between the Topsham Fairgrounds and Route 196.
Okay,
It abuts the railroad tracks that are there. What it does, right now it's landlocked. But we might be able to negotiate something with the fairgrounds for
Okay.
access.
Brian.
Thank you, guys.
A nice thing about it, abutting the railroad tracks, is that's being evaluated right now by the state for turning into a rail trail, kind of pedestrian bike. So we are in the process of upgrading a culvert on Tedford Road, and we're in the process of getting sidewalks designed. So it could well be that you could get from, say, the high school to middle school by going up K&M to what's now public, West Mountain Road. Now it's also called K&M, up the Village Drive. At some point, Highlands is probably gonna wanna turn Audubon over to us, so that would become public, so you could come out that to Tedford Road. You could take the, nice sidewalks we're building in Tedford Road, get on the rail trail and get to the facility or continue to other places.
Mark, it's quicker just to walk here across the road, go that
Which would be another way to get there.
I know, I'm
But
just.
the rail trail would go all the way to potentially Augusta. So it would be parked on, basically if we got use that site, the building could be in the middle of all this trail system, be all kinds of different directions. Right now, the lane has a restriction on it that has to be used for public purposes, and it's easy. But it's a picnic area or rest area. But I've been in talk to Maine DOT lawyers, and they're running it through to try to get that part removed. So if that gets removed, then it would just has to be for public purposes, which would be fine. So could potentially, nice thing about that site is it's not that far from water and sewer. And if this rail trail things comes to pass, we could probably get permission to put a sewer line right beside it to go down to Elm Street, which is where all our sewerage is anyway, before we ship it down to Brunswick. So for a lot of, and it's a big enough site, you could build on in the future, let's say we don't do everything at once. There's a lot of positives that I think about that site, so that could, and it wouldn't cost us any money to buy it, which is nice too. So that's a potential site, but.
And the street name is?
Is what?
Remember the street name?
Community Way, there was access to come out Community Way. So,
I avoided answering that question
yeah,
because that's a lot of explanation. So I said, well, it depends on what the community wants. If they want just a small building, we just need a small parcel of land. If they want a huge building with a pool, and I kind of left it at that, because I didn't want to go into that great detail. May I ask, is the Liberty Circle thing on the table again, because something came up about the water?
Liberty Circle, or,
The little development that's kind of abandoned now that you said we had some property on, off of the high school?
yeah, I don't think we have property on that though. I mean, developers talking about building housing there, but
Okay, well, I heard through the grapevine that maybe that didn't go through because they wanted to put in wells instead of
that's
spending the money
definitely true.
joining.
Because this restriction,
Yeah.
you can't dig it, you can't take groundwater out of there because of some stuff that he had, so. So that's definitely true that you can't put wells, and that's why that's housing development isn't gonna proceed right now.
So that's a possibility too.
If they, but they'd have to
Have
give it
come
to
in
us,
the budget.
that's privately owned, so they'd have to give it to us.
Yeah.
Or sell it to us.
I just told them build it and they will come.
You know, and nothing says we have to build our currently owned town property too, and maybe if we'd end up buying it someplace.
It's gonna happen there. I have all the faith in the world.
I do too.
I love this site,
I
it
see it
seems
there.
like there's so much potential for the.
Especially if there's anybody could get them to take that off.
That's why I'm looking at it and smiling.
And then with the rail trail going by there too, and we do have $400,000 that was part of a Highland tip that's supposed to go for to a connection from the Highlands towards the trail. But they were investigating how can we make a safer crossing at Community Way and Village Drive, and you really can't, especially because they want to go now 4 lanes. Because so 196 doesn't get backed up anymore. They want to build it out, the state, in the next few years. So the best answer is not to go over it, or certainly it's not to go across it, it's to go under it. So if the railroad tracks gets turned into that trail, we'd be able to get under 196 off Tedford Road, which would be a great way to get there.
I'm only nervous because the one person that blasted me with an absolute no is on the Topsham Fair board and also on our select board. And so I'm nervous that that group of people are gonna be
It sounds like,
bristling their necks over even the suggestion of it, because they think that land should have gone to them, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
and I've had that discussion a little bit now, and because I guess they thought a prior town manager had told them that the land, but it's very clear in the deed
Yeah, I know.
that the town has to have it in community purposes or it reverts to the state. The same way if the Legion doesn't exist, that property reverts to us, that the Legion's on. And the state was like, "Nah, we're not gonna change I said, no, we're happy to leave the community
Yeah.
purpose, we just don't want to have a rest area.
Was that a Gary Brownism?
I can't remember, I don't think Gary was here at that point,
Would have been Catherine?
it was like 2012.
Oh, okay. That would be Jim.
But I think there's ways that we could make this win-win. You know, for instance,
Oh, yeah.
maybe during Fair Week, the building gets used as an exhibition hall or something, or, you know, instead of having a community center that week. And you could share parking lots, and certainly if we end up maintaining Community Way to get, so like, we maintain the Townsend Way to get to the transfer station. If we start maintaining Community Way, there could be less work for the fairgrounds in some ways.
Well, we need your sweet talk when it comes down to talking to them, because. May I make one, request of the committee? Until Pam said Ryan, I didn't know who that was.
Oh,
Could we be better about introducing, he didn't even say who he was, and I passed a note, that might be Ryan Holmes, one of our selectmen. So-
He's been to committees before.
I
And
know.
thought, yeah, not while you were here. so
And
I
there was
thought-
a couple of times when there were people in the audience, and I didn't know who they were, and maybe we could be better about.
That's a good idea.
Introductions.
Yeah.
Come on, Chair.
I don't
He
know.
wasn't on when you got interviewed, the two of them were on, he got, when they got
No,
interviewed.
I actually talked to him, that's what
Okay.
clicked when you said Ryan,
Ryan.
he was sitting there at the table.
Oh, okay.
being interviewed. But he didn't have his hat on, I think he was kind of baldish, I was remembering a different.
So how about, within step 1, we may, any non-committee member attendees, just,
Introductions.
yeah,
just call it
introductions for any guests.
It's important for them to know who you are too.
Yeah.
They may not.
Yeah, sure.
So guest present with introductions.
Yeah, the important thing is to basically, offer them the opportunity, because of the public record stuff. If someone could just sit here, keep their mouth shut, and not say a word if they want, we can't force them to say
Right.
anything. So we can say, hey, we'd like to introduce ourselves, we'd like to introduce yourself.
Fair enough.
Allison, to add to agenda.
Thank you, Allison. So are we looking at the end of April?
I think we would just be looking at our normal time and then invite Brian and Mark and Ally. Which I think
Well,
would be Monday, May sixth.
it would be April 1st, wouldn't
Now,
it? So we have to kind of find our way back to that in a way by not having it too close to this, but not too far, but of course, the 15th is school vacation.
Right,
I mean, if you're gonna do a tour or two in April, that's plenty of time. You probably don't wanna do a meeting as well.
I think we
Right.
talked about the 22nd, but
for a meeting.
yeah. I thought we had something about it, but
I would suggest that, and I don't know how this works for you guys, but April 20th or the 27th to do a tour.
I'm not available on 20.
Not the 20th.
I am not either.
I know that's the end of April vacation, so.
I'll be on there.
How about the 27th?
It should work for me.
If I had a date, I think it would be easier for me to get this set up with. And then I would suggest that for the May 6th meeting. Mark, what's the date for town meeting?
I believe it is the 22nd.
22nd?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. How about if we keep May 6th on the agenda for our next meeting? And we take that trip the weekend before the 27th tentatively?
We had talked about getting together, or we were gonna do it by email to do other pushes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't need to meet in
May
person.
6th looks good.
What time will that one be?
I think it will, the one on the 6th?
Yes.
5:15.
15 minutes extra, that's fine, but
Works for you?
Yes, 5:15 works for me.
You work till
Keep it.
5.
I work
yeah,
till 5.
let's keep it that way.
Is that good for others?
Putting the confirmation of next meeting date and time was added to our agenda, thanks to Lynn. Because we kept skipping over that part, so now we have an actual slot to fill.
So where are we gonna go on the 27th then?
I'm gonna need to call them and set them up, and I'm thinking that May 6th, I might have you meet us at St. John's and get a tour that night before the meeting, or at 5:15, and then come back here. Because that one's local,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking on the 27th, we plan to carpool and do a trip.
Like a 9 AM start kind of?
Yeah, and it will really be dependent upon who's available and willing to show us that day.
Okay.
But I'll make those calls and try to get that hooked up.
Okay.
No, we're gonna move on. Okay, great. Are we good?
Yeah.
Meeting will be adjourned at 6:10.